Let's get into small caps now. Recce Pharmaceuticals has received approval for phase 3 clinical trial of its antibiotic to treat diabetic foot infections at hospitals in Indonesia. Chief Executive James Graham joining us now. James, welcome back.
Hi Andrew, good to be here.
So, phase 3 clinical trials in Indonesia. Why Indonesia?
Indonesia has a population of 280 million people and 11% of those have diabetes. So if you have diabetes, you have a 44% chance of getting a diabetic foot ulcer and a 90% chance of that ulcer becoming infected. There's currently no approved treatments specifically for diabetic foot ulcer infections. Furthermore, if you're approved in Indonesia, you're approved into the ASEAN group of countries, so around 700 million people, a very high prevalence of diabetic foot infections, and it in fact brings to the near term the commercial opportunities that this registrational study provides.
How will the study and the trial take place then, just I guess in terms of what you're looking to establish the efficacy then?
We really are. So we've demonstrated in our phase 2 study that all patients, 100% of patients, in fact had a clinical response, meaning a clinically meaningful outcome from the dosing of our compound against any different type of bacteria in their diabetic foot ulcer infection. With that data, we now go into a larger group. So the group is approximately 300 persons, 200 active, 100 placebo. And you're really demonstrating if the compound can work on those diabetic foot ulcers. If successful, as we have an expedited regulatory review for this registrational study, we could be selling into this major patient population and region as early as 18 months from today.
What sort of support, particularly financially, are you getting from both Indonesia and also here in Australia?
It's a really politically charged environment, if I say it. So the Indonesian government initially approached us. Why? The World Health Organization announced us as clinically the most advanced new class of antibiotic in the world at this time, and in fact the first new class in over 40 years. So the Indonesian government said, we want to be seen to access this novel new medicine for the Indonesian people. The Australian government went, we want to be to support Recce to be the first commercially approved drug in Indonesia and to build upon the bilateral relationship between the two regions. The pharmaceutical companies, Atana in Indonesia, who we aim to be our licensing and distribution partner, and ourselves came together to really create a scenario that delivers a registrational product, costs around $2 million to produce the study itself, and really gets 43.5 cents R&D rebate on that investment to access that region in any case.
Is it just foot infections, or potentially this can treat other infections as well?
It can treat any bacterial infection. So actually in Australia we have almost finished, and we will finish within the next week or two, what's called ABSSSI, or acute bacterial skin infection studies. And what that basically means is using it as a topical gel on breaks in the skin. So an operation, an accident, a puncture wound, a diabetic ulcer wound, a dog bite, as we've seen in some of the a couple of the cases of these patients, we've demonstrated to be extremely efficacious and clearly safe. That study will now move into a phase 3 focused upon the US FDA and Europe, but we could broaden our application into the ASEAN to align with that broad spectrum capability demonstrated here in Australia.
Beyond ASEAN then, where would you be looking? What is that's your foothold that you want to start in?
It's our first commercial opportunity. So we really take kind of a Qantas and Jetstar approach. Qantas towards the FDA, a really premium product for a premium market. Jetstar, it gets you there, it achieves the job, but it's affordable. And that's what we seek to have into the ASEAN. And the product, obviously, through the studies there, is then applicable across the Middle East, India, the Middle East, into Africa, and we believe also into the UK since their separation from the EU, which has a different set of guidelines. So two-pronged strategy, bringing forward revenue opportunities.
So you were saying 18 months, aim for commercialisation?
18 months.
Okay. Can you put a profitability timestamp on it then?
Look, I can say that clearly the diabetic population there that has diabetic foot ulcer infections is around 10 million persons per annum. Around 10% of those are in the high net worth category that could certainly pay for an affordable medicine. We think it'll be subsidised under the public health system for the wider population. The market is worth about 200 million US dollars each year in Indonesia, and it's worth some couple of billion into the ASEAN alone. So as an unmet medical need not addressed by any existing drugs, it's one for the taking, and we're on the forefront of that.